Greetings and welcome to your destination. You've reached the Psychological Wellness Hub. We aim to help you build your knowledge and wellness around better understanding mental health and psychological concepts. Welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is an expansion or deep dive into the concept of trauma. A part 2 in the series where we build further on the concept. Please feel free to watch part 1 video of this series, which prepares you for this video. See the link below in the description. Remember to stick around to the end of the video to get more answers and where to go next or the next steps. Quick review, what is trauma? Trauma is known clinically or medically as indicated by the American Psychological Association as an emotional response someone has to extremely negative event. This event can be any experience that results in fear, helplessness, dissociation, confusion, or disruptive feelings intensive enough to have long-lasting effects on the person's attitudes, behaviors, and other aspects of functioning. It's a personal emotional experience that colors or impacts our view or our perception of our experience and how it impacts our views on ourselves, others, and the world. It can be an experience where we personally went through directly. If we witnessed someone else going through it, this resulted in a trauma experience for ourselves as a result of observing this. We may also learn or be confronted with the information of an event that causes trauma for ourselves. So examples of trauma can include, but are not limited to, unwanted events of being physically harmed, sexually assaulted, raped, or sexually abused, being physically abused, domestic violence, war, work or industrial accidents, motor vehicle accidents, observing someone being intensely harmed or assaulted physically or sexually by someone else, terrorist attacks, being kidnapped or tortured, natural disasters, sudden and unexpected deaths of a loved one, and many, many more. Trauma can also include aversive childhood experiences such as abandonment, as well as emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Some describe this as a normal reaction to an abnormal experience. These states can involve several different enduring transitions. These states generally involve physical or bodily sensations and changes that result as a result of the intense emotional reactions. Are trauma experiences and the different transitions bad for us? In general, no. We can endure a lot of trauma as humans, more than we realize. Many of us experience very upsetting experiences throughout our entire lives. Many of these experiences as humans lead to us recovering naturally with some ongoing or lingering difficulties, or maybe sometimes what we refer to as baggage. This baggage can be worked through sometimes directly as well as indirectly. However, when we don't work through these lingering issues or baggage, or a new trauma comes about, we don't naturally recover. We may end up with regular trauma-related emotional transitions. If this trauma-related emotional fluctuations become problematic, it can form into a trauma or a trauma-related disorder. Please see links below in the description for more information on those. In short, there is a breakdown of the healthy trauma system. See links below in the description for more information on those. Or check out information in this section, this playlist, or on psychological wellness skills. Common misconceptions or misguided ideas about trauma. All trauma or trauma responses is bad or are bad. This is actually incorrect. We need our trauma response as a human being to instinctually for survival. It also helps us to tolerate pain as well as pleasure. Trauma responses totally come from or are impacted by the outside. This is incorrect. We are born with a natural, healthy trauma response system within our nervous system. It alerts you of a need to know information. Think about what we refer to as our survival instinct. Think about it. If there is something outside of us that is bothersome, we don't experience that fear outside of our body. The thing outside is like a fire starter. Our body is a stove or furnace. We can only feed the fire. Trauma response is often referred to as an emotion. This is only partially true in a sense. Trauma response actually is in response to emotions or states, internal states. Experiencing different trauma states means I'm losing it. This is incorrect. This is your body and mind shifting to the experience. Much like the shifts in your immune system to a threat to that system, maybe a virus or bacterial issue. Trauma shifts are meant to aid us. However, those shifts start to become way too extreme when the trauma-related significant problems may start to appear. Not all trauma results in a disorder, as many naturally recover from this experience on their own. Trauma is not to be confused with PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, which will be discussed in another video. How do we interact with the trauma response? As stated above, we are born with a natural healthy trauma response system within our nervous system. It is part of our information highway where our body communication occurs. It helps us navigate several life functions and life experiences. For example, our problem-solving abilities or overcoming barriers. It might be hard to imagine this, but have you ever been in a state where you felt stuck with figuring out how to solve or overcome an obstacle? You go through the pains in hopes for a solution. Think about how we feel after we find a way, over this whole hurdle or through it or around it. Think about how you come to a solution. This is not just your awareness, insight, and reasoning at play. Your trauma system is a big factor in aiding you in this process. Think about your ego, pride, and self-esteem. Notice how when your trauma response shifts, how these areas seem within reach or at times can feel so far away, depending on how you respond to the trauma, how you deal with the lingering effects or the baggage that comes with it. Ever notice that if we focus too much on our pride, we can get a big head? This can cause problems like being able to walk through a doorway. No, but on a serious note, though, how can we notice if we dig in too much to protect ourselves and our pride becomes too big? How can it affect the decisions that we make that may lead to, painful outcomes? Ever notice when you're invited to do something and you reluctantly accept? After you went out and did it, you kind of realize to yourself that you feel better and you were glad that you did it. Remember, we've been through lots of experiences like this, right? A friend that invites us out, a spouse invites you out to go do something, right? They're trying to look out for us or encourage us in some way and we can't see it. But once we go out and do it, we notice we feel better in some way. This is very similar to what we're talking about here with your pride. Going back to baggage mentioned earlier, if we avoid our baggage from the past, how might it make this barrier or obstacle seem bigger or larger with a new trauma that happens? However, in comparison, notice if when you work on the baggage over time, having those corrective emotional experiences, how this might impact things. How this might actually work to increase your confidence and belief to tackle the old baggage and replacing it with these new experiences. The confidence, the competence. Some things may lead to trauma responses malfunctioning and becoming too excessive. So this is where we talk about how things start to maybe break down a little bit in your trauma response system. Here's a brief list. Excessive doubts, excessive excuses, I can'ts, what ifs, living in the pity pot, not following through. So again, remember the pity pot's there to help us, not a final destination. Excessive stress. Reading how we feel in the moment is how we will always feel, forgetting we don't always feel this bad. Negative thinking is not bad, it can help us, but if it becomes a dominant focus by our choice, then it becomes an obstacle, hurting us, facilitating our baggage. Focusing too much on our weaknesses. Again, like we said, negative thinking above. Same variables at play. Street drugs, excessive caffeine, excessive alcohol, eating too much or too little, letting thinking go down a rabbit hole too often, excessive avoidance or withdrawing behaviors, excessive emotional suppression or isolation, not eventually facing things, right? We do want to take breaks and not immerse ourselves 24/7 in our problems. But if we never go towards them, how can we expect those things in the baggage to be able to be worked through? If our trauma response goes unchecked in this area, it becomes destructive and it can be potentially manifest into a trauma-related disorder. See more about trauma disorders on the channel. See behavioral health conditions or see the links in the descriptions below. Examples of trauma response in humans. I'm going to read some examples of individuals who display their trauma responses. Please note these are not real people, but their stories represent real scenarios. Listen while I tell you about the story. Listen for trauma responses in each story. Lastly, I will specifically point out some of the trauma responses from the healthy system, as well as those trauma responses breaking down or becoming destructive. Ethan is a shift worker in his 30s. When Ethan hears his alarm go off, he knows he needs to get up and get ready for work for his shift. Ethan knows he needs to remain aware and alert given the nature of his job working on wind turbines. Ethan has had a couple of workplace accidents where his life was at risk. One was a pretty big deal for Ethan. He remembers having some fear he was going to die in the moment, and after he was safe, he felt the same way for a while. Ethan also has trauma from earlier in life, but this didn't stick with him for long because he faced it. He worked through it. The same played out with his recent trauma, but he also faced this fairly quickly. He did this by facing his emotions, tapping into his thinking about facing his goals. While the job is fulfilling, it does come with some concerns about life and keeping this job. Even saving up for his dream trip to Europe. He thinks about his dreams in his head where he will travel and what he will do. He realizes he has to put off gratification for now, which is upsetting to him, but he has to pay his rent and other bills and cannot save all of his money for the trip. He digs into his work, digs into his savings and planning. He has that mindset. Every little bit helps. Ethan focuses on the healthy trauma response. Things like structure or routine, being on time, being efficient. He also focuses on being safe while finding time to use his work to go towards his dreams, rolling with his fears, embracing them, and refocusing his efforts to solve the problem and reach the goal. Problematic trauma responses. There is some variability in symptoms, but nothing significant that puts his trauma response into the destructive side for too long of a period. Connie is a woman in her 40s who has a history of childhood physical abuse that still causes her difficulty today. Recently, she had a man aggressively follow her in a parking lot after she was shopping for a while. Connie locked herself in the car when she ran from him. Then the man swiftly left the area. This recent experience inflamed Connie's usual symptoms related to her childhood trauma that she never addressed or confronted. Her symptoms felt like they were on steroids, on fire. Connie generally exercises daily. She generally looks forward to her exercise routine and upbeat music she has in her exercise playlist. However, this week has been a tough one, a real whopper after this incident. She thinks for a moment of needing a break, but despite this, she still gets in a good workout. After exercising, she moves to the sauna, slowing things down for her cool down. Connie makes sure to call her mom early enough after her routine, but not too close to her bedtime. Connie lets her mind activity go by putting her thoughts and her emotions down on paper like a journal and saves them to look at in the morning. Connie wakes up the next day and gets a call from the nurse about some of her lab results, and the nurse tells her the doctor wants to see her to talk to her more about them. Connie fixates on what her lab results could entail. She starts to manifest the worst case scenario, thinking things like cancer. Connie fixates on her health anxiety till her appointment times, experiencing periods of panic, feeling restless like her head is on a swivel constantly, looking out for danger, like something is going to hit her or hurt her, like the man in the garage trying to do that. Connie becomes so focused on this, she stops her exercise routine and calling her mom to think about some of it more, to fixate on it. Sources of healthy trauma response. So Connie does things like routines, social contacts, promoting healing, internal states through her upbeat music and exercise. She limits the trauma response best she can from impacting her sleep by journaling, putting this stuff down on paper and looking at it later. Sources of problematic trauma response. She fixates on what she could have impacting sources of healthy trauma response, things like exercise, social outlets, noticing the problematic trauma symptoms but choosing to ignore them, hoping they will just go away. So again, those would be representative of the problematic or destructive kind of side of our trauma response. We hope you found today's topic was useful for yourself or someone else. Let us know if it was by commenting below. Let us know what you'd like to hear about or what topics could be useful to you by commenting below, and we'll take them under consideration. If you like what you heard today and would like to hear more from Destination Psychological Wellness Hub, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel or page. This will help you get the newest content produced by the channel or page to you. Please tell all your friends and family about this channel or share this and other videos with them on this channel. Encourage them too to like and subscribe. And as always, we hope your psychological wellness continues to grow with us in this community. Thank you.